Listened to in 165 countries. Downloaded over 1 million times in 2014. Your one stop for scientific research on building muscle and gaining strength. Interviews with elite strength professionals and strength athletes, and a whole lot more. This is the Barbell One Show.
What's going on, and thanks for tuning in to Inside Natural Bodybuilding on the Barbell One Show. Be sure to check out our sponsors, barbell1.com and topsupplementsonline.com. Currently, Barbell One is having its only sale of the year, free shipping and 25% off all items through the end of November 30th, 2015. And I want to apologize for the hiatus away from regular episodes, but I'm currently uploading two very special interviews with two of this year's Natural Bodybuilding World Champions. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to Inside Natural Bodybuilding and the Barbell One Show. Today I got a very special guest, also a good friend of mine and fellow Inside Natural Bodybuilding reporter. He is, normally I say, 7-time Natural Bodybuilding World Champion, but now I can say 8-time. Just won the Natural Olympia in convincing fashion. This was the first year that there were height classes. So this guest actually beat out Martin Daniels in his height class and went on to take the overall. If you haven't guessed already, the guest is Philip Ricardo Jr.
Hey, Big John, how you doing?
Good, man. Glad I was there to see it. I happened to be in town and stepped over and didn't catch most of the show, but definitely caught the part that mattered most to me, and it was awesome to see you take it home.
Great. Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see you there, so it was a pleasant surprise, and, it was a great night for me, that's for sure.
Awesome. So it's one of those things where, obviously you took a few years away from competing, and I think a lot of people, whenever that happens, they wonder, is this the end? Are they coming back? Something they might wonder of you, of, say, Brian Whitaker coming back this year, maybe even of Kiyoshi. Is he ever going to come back? Those kind of things. What was kind of going on in your head the last few years? Like, did you know from the moment you stepped away you were definitely coming back, or was there actually a question that maybe you wouldn't be coming back?
I mean, I knew I was coming back. My family pretty well. You've been to our house, see my wife and kids. It's important to, kind of give them a break from the prep and constant bodybuilding and fitness, whether it's a VIP camp here or judging or just being involved in sport. And, of course, I love the sport more than any other thing I do besides my family. But I definitely have to make sure that I give that time back to my family and take that time off. I've been doing this for so long, and I've been on stage many times. And, earlier on in my career, I would do, 4 or 5 shows per year. So now, with my kids getting older and just really wanting to spend that quality time with my family, I wanted to kind of give them a break and choose the quality shows that, really would matter and would really test myself against the best athletes, because I've gone up against, especially now after going up against guys like Martin Daniels and Shaq and everybody, I've been competing and I've been on stage against all the top guys in the world. So that's what made this one so special. I thought Cleveland Thomas was possibly going to show, or maybe even Siobhan Cunningham, but just having Martin Daniels there, right, was really what made the show, what really pushed me to the limits to kind of train hard for the title, and luckily the judges chose me. So
nice. Yeah, no, if I had to be honest with you, and this is just being like objective as a friend, but when I'd come to your place when I was doing my shows in 2013, you did seem a little bit kind of like, maybe you're trying to find your groove again, trying to get, back that full level of motivation, that fire to go after it. And it was interesting for me, correct me if I'm wrong, but, when I saw you backstage getting ready to go out at the night show against Martin, you seemed, confident, but a little bit slightly nervous, a little bit kind of unsure. And it seemed like once you got on stage that you could just like tell you almost like morphed into like this, just like warrior. You're just like on, and you're like, as soon as you beat Martin, you just like looked like you're like, this is my title. No one's taking this. I'm bringing it home. Is that kind of like how you were feeling, or kind of walk us through those thoughts?
No, yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. It's when you compete against these top guys, it's so close. I have so much respect for Martin. He's a beast. I've looked up to him, as one of my idols, throughout my career. As soon as I saw him, back in 2010 and on, he just, he's one of the greatest, that's out there right now. So you see guys like him or Kiyoshi Moody or Doug Miller or, Cleveland Thomas, Shaq, Brian Whitaker, those guys, you see them, you just never know where you're going to fall in. And so when I look at myself and trying to compare myself with guys like him, I have to, psych myself up to kind of turning a whole new mindset so that I have to be aggressive and make sure that I'm doing the right poses to show my strengths, hide my weaknesses, and try to get any kind of edge I can so that I can be competitive with guys like that. And, in 2012, when I went up against Kiyoshi, I thought that I did everything I could to win that show. And Kiyoshi is one of the greatest of all time, 6-time Natural Olympia, champion. So it was not disappointing, but when I went in that show thinking I had a good chance to win and came up second, I had to be prepared for that. And I was almost trying to do the same thing in this instance, just in case, I thought I did everything I could to win this show. But if for some reason the judges chose Martin, I had to be prepared that, I would come in second and make sure that, I was okay with that and that I was gracious in any way, whether win or lose or how the outcome came. And so when I'm backstage, it's kind of what goes through my head. And then I just go out on stage and do the best I can, but also be prepared that, you never know what the outcome will be.
Right. Yeah. And then, like I said, once Martin was out of the way, it just seemed almost like you could just feel this, like it's his, and he's, just going all out, and, you're posing very aggressively, and then, yeah, you took it right home. And so it was cool to see, because it's like, it's one thing to have someone come back and win a show in like a timid fashion. But like I said, once you could kind of feel it was yours, it just looked like you were ready to take it home and excited to be back. And it was good to see.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was an enormous weight definitely off my shoulders, to come out on top. And, it's all about having fun out there, but sometimes you do take it seriously. And I don't take it seriously because of me, but I also want to make sure I don't disappoint, people that follow me or that, look at me in a certain way. So, I just love to be on stage. I love to pose. I love to, just be out there looking like I'm having a good time and perform. But sometimes when you reach a certain level, there's a lot of expectations out there from people. And so if I don't live up to those expectations, I feel bad for my fans versus for myself, if that makes sense. So being able to, go out there and get that, it kind of makes me feel really, really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So some people would wonder, you were mentioning at the beginning how you thought that perhaps Siobhan or Cleveland would be at this show, and obviously they were not. But, obviously, choosing the Natural Olympia, it's a very competitive show. There's a lot of great competitors. But some might wonder, why didn't you step on stage at the Orton? Or, if like the WNBF Worlds or something was on a different date, would you have done something like that? Or was it pretty much just Natural O all the way? You knew that was the only one you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few reasons. I mean, I was actually at the Orton, and I was judging the Orton, and I was able to see Brian Whitaker and give him his overall trophy, which was a great throw to me because Brian's a good friend of mine. And I have so much respect for him as not just a bodybuilder, just as a man. He's a family guy. He's one of those guys that, he's all about his family, and you won't see much from him. He does he's a professor in college, and then he, spends time with his family, which is great. And so then when he comes out and he gets into the mode of competing, that he does work and he doesn't have to, talk too much. He just goes out there and takes home titles. And so I respect that. And it was great to see him and see him live and in person on stage and his, super shredded self and give him that cup. And I was thinking about doing the Orton, but honestly, this year I wanted to focus only on the INBA, PNBA, because A, I'm a promoter for them. And I really want to continue promoting the organization and just kind of solely focus on that. B, my kids were also involved with the kids' fitness. And so it just made sense for us to kind of focus on, putting all of our eggs in that one basket and doing everything with the ABA, INBA, PNBA. And my kids competed, I think, 4 or 5 times this year, more than I did. Then, of course, I promoted my show, did a guest posing for another ABA show, and then just wanted to kind of roll into the Natural Olympia. And early in the year, it was discussed that a lot of the competitors were going to actually be at the Natural Olympia, guys like, Cleveland Thomas and possibly Siobhan Cunningham. No one knew if Kiyoshi was going to come back or not, because he'll retire one time and then also going to come out on the stage and dominate. So the show is built up to have a lot more of the top guys there, but like I said, just having Martin there, and of course, Justin Vergara, who's unbelievable. Obviously, Michael Waddington, Meshack, who looked incredible as well. Just having those guys there just made the competition already as stacked, as it could be. So very, very happy with that. But that was my mindset.
Gotcha. So you started promoting your own show, I think a couple years ago now, and you mentioned that. What's that experience been like? I think a lot of times when a competitor is perhaps phasing out of their competitive years, you know, they start to kind of line up these things to keep them involved with the sport and keep it growing and stuff. Do you feel that that's kind of like fueled you and made you want to come back and compete, or can you see yourself eventually transitioning into that role where maybe you're not competing, but you're just doing a lot of promoting and helping grow the sport?
That's a good question. I really honestly don't know. I kind of just, you know, take things day to day. I only promoted because I really wanted to see a presence of the ABA on the East Coast because, you know, as you know, there's mainly out here on the East Coast, it's OCB, NGA, WMPF, a couple of DFAC shows. That's usually what kind of rules out here. And, you know, it's always good to have other options. And, you know, the Natural Olympia to me is one of the biggest, you know, titles that you can ever get. It's one of the biggest shows, prize money, car, etc. So people don't have the opportunity to, you know, qualify for the Natural Olympia unless you do a show. So I wanted to have a show out here that promoted that organization. So I basically told Denny Keiko, say, hey, look, you guys need to get some shows out here. And they said, well, we need to get a promoter out there that can do it. And I can't lie, I was very scared to do it because I just don't think, you know, you're not doing a promotion for money. You're not going to make a lot of money from being a promoter, especially in your first couple of years. You have to do it for the passion of the sport and trying to give back. And, you know, I have a busy lifestyle with my family and my job and everything. So I didn't think I can pull it off. But, you know, luckily the Keiko's family was very helpful in guiding me to do the show. And when I did it, it was an awesome experience. And just seeing how you can give back to all the athletes, especially in this area, and giving them another option at an organization, it really, you know, it's really great. And of course, my wife is involved as well. So as a team and as a family, it was a great experience. And this year was even better. As a matter of fact, that's where Martin Daniels, you know, he won my show this year. And it was the first time I got to see him. And of course, when I saw him, it really pushed my training to the next level because I didn't think, you know, seeing a guy like that I could even hang with him on stage. And it was great that I was able to meet him. He's the greatest guy, such a humble champion. And then that just led to us competing against each other this year.
Nice. So I was actually interviewing Brian Whitaker earlier today, and one of the questions, a couple of these questions are similar ones I want to ask both you guys. And I was talking to him about, you know, everyone always says that, right? You know, natural bodybuilders are so humble. They're so humble, whether it be you or Brian or Martin or whoever. And, you know, we were talking about just the overall opportunities and prize money and, you know, ability to make a living. And one of the questions I asked him was, I'm like, you know, does it ever frustrate you that as a natural bodybuilder that you basically like can't make a living just from competing? Does that ever bother you? Is that something you've dreamed of? You'd like that opportunity to come for others in future years? Like, what are your thoughts?
I wouldn't say it frustrates me, but I do see a double standard because, you know, obviously you got two different realms where you have the NPC, IFBB versus all the natural organizations. And, you know, obviously we all work just as hard in the gym, train, diet, etc. You know, it's just different avenues that you choose to go by. But it's such a huge gap when it comes to the prize money and sponsorships. And you kind of do wonder why it is that way. And of course, one of the big problems is, you know, the natural organizations. There's so many of them. And that's been talked about so many times that, you know, it kind of dilutes, you know, where the athletes can go. It dilutes how much prize money can be offered and things like that. So I kind of think we've kind of laid our own bed as to where we're at when it comes to, you know, making a living in the sport. It would be nice if some of the top, you know, athletes were able to at least make more and get maybe more endorsements and advertisements, things like that. But, you know, it is. You have to do it for the love of the sport. And I feel that, you know, at least on the ABA, INBA side, they're trying to push, you know, maybe trying to get to the Olympic Games somehow, kind of as a, you know, spectator portion of it or something. So it's good to see the sport continue to move forward. There has been great strides from when I first got into the sport back in the late 90s. You know, they used to have ESPN, they have American Muscle for like muscle making shows. Now there's a lot of magazines that feature some of the athletes, and they don't even have to be the top athletes, uppercomers. or, you know, whoever. So that's great that at least we're getting some kind of advertisement. Not necessarily getting paid, but, you know, who wouldn't want to get paid doing this? I really don't have an answer as to if it'll ever happen that you get paid $500,000 like you get at the Natural Olympia through IFBB. But, you know, I think because I just enjoy the sport so much, and luckily for me, I have a great job besides bodybuilding, that I just continue just doing this for fun and for the love of it.
Right. And so do you think that it would change? Imagine, you know, a few years from now, the prize for the National Bodybuilding World Champion is, you know, 50 grand or 75 grand or something. Do you think that that would change this kind of humble nature and everyone kind of being the way they are? And, you know, Brian had actually mentioned that he kind of liked the fact that it was kind of small and, you know, people didn't get too arrogant or too about the money and were purely just doing it for the love. Do you think that would change?
Yeah, I mean, money does bring out the worst of people. You know, just to be honest, I think, you know, if you're going for something and next thing you know, you have a chance to get 50 grand and you think you deserve to win that 50 grand and you get second or third or whatever. I can just imagine there being some people kind of being perturbed by that. But, you know, I agree with Brian. You know, sometimes it's good that it's the way it is and it keeps everything really family oriented. People, when I went to the Natural Olympia, I'm sure you saw it, you know, you see the same people, even though you may see them once a year, that come from all over the world. And, you know, they'll bring a team out from Australia. They had over 100 competitors. And you see teams from Africa, you know, some of the European countries. They bring their team out here, and they're probably spending thousands of dollars out of their own pocket. And they're not thinking about the money. They're just thinking about actually just the title, you know, and just to go back home to their home country with the possibilities of, you know, being a bronze medal, silver medal, gold medal winner, and just to represent their country as one of the top natural bodybuilders in the world. And that's a great thing. Would money change that? I don't know, because I think if they're already paying that money knowing that they're not going to get paid, I don't think that's like a big, you know, motivating factor for them. I think it's just the title itself. I'm sure money would change people if that were the case. But for now, I mean, I just don't see it happening. I think most natural bodies already know in the back of their head that, you know, they're doing it for the fun of it. And I think that there's a very huge population of natural bodybuilders out there, and it's do it for the love of the sport.
Gotcha. So obviously, like with you, you know, you just won the Natural Olympia, as I said now, you know, 8-time world champion. And you know, some people would say, you know, you've basically won all of the titles. Perhaps, like, I guess you could win the WNBF Worlds. If I'm not mistaken, you haven't won that one, correct?
No, I have not. I've not competed with the WNBF. And I love what they do. I love Bob Bell and Tina Smith, and, you know, they're great, and everybody out there, and a lot of the competitors. But I have not done WNBF.
Right. So, you know, with that being the case, you know, someone might ask, you know, perhaps you could win that title, but beyond that, like, what would keep you competing? Is it because you want the certain matchups against some of the other competitors? You want to win other federation titles? You'd even maybe want to try the Team Universe? Is it stuff like that, or you would purely just keep going regardless, just of love of competing?
Well, to be honest with you, I've, you know, discussed this, especially with my wife. You know, me and my wife talk about, obviously, the sport a lot, and she's my biggest supporter, my best friend, and, you know, we've been trying to kind of map out the future. And, you know, I look at it in a way where you see a lot of bodybuilders that are out there, and if you've won a huge title and, you know, you've pretty much done all you can in the sport, sometimes if you keep going even for the love of the sport, you know, you can kind of, I guess, mess with where your standing is. If you come and just keep competing until you start placing, you know, third, fourth, or not placing at all, sometimes it's good to go out on top. So it's something that we've been thinking about, and I've been thinking about too, because I definitely want to start putting my energy more into my family, into my kids. You know, because as you know, it's very demanding to, you know, continue to prep, and you got so many other things going on. This year was extremely difficult for me because not only was I prepping, but promoting a show, getting my kids prepared for their show, trying to spend as much quality time with them, spending time with my wife. You know, it's just a lot to do. And, if you do that, you don't put 100% into it, and then you go into a huge show and start placing lower and lower, then yeah, I may have won this year, but if I'm placing out, you know, third place next year and the year after, usually people go off of what you've done last. And so as much as I would like to continue on and keep going, and, you know, I haven't gone up against some superstars like Brian, obviously, or David Kay won the DSAC Worlds, or I haven't gone against Siobhan Cunningham. You know, those are probably the last three, you know, top competitors that I have faced, but I've faced everybody else. I just feel like I think I've accomplished all that I've ever wanted to accomplish and more, and I feel really satisfied. I feel like I have a lot left in my tank, and I think I can improve. I've been lucky to come out this year, and I can see that I made improvements. I had, you know, some really good help from some assistance from a good friend of mine that gave me a lot of advice on how to peak and to come in fuller. And I think that really brought me to a new level. But even with that, I feel like I may not, you know, I don't know. Can't say I'll never come back on stage, but right now I don't have the urge, you know, to go back out there again and try to prove anything.
Gotcha. So here we are, just a few days removed from the competition. How long did it take for are you still kind of in like that high of competing, or does that wear off faster and faster the more titles you win?
I still feel great. You know, I think I've been getting a lot of messages, you know, on Facebook, obviously, and social media. You know, people that I haven't heard from before, you know, they're asking me questions and congratulating me, and, you know, people wanting, you know, my older DVD and autographs and things. And it's a great feeling. I can't lie. You know, you always want people to, you know, think highly of you. So it feels great. So I ride that wave as long as I can until, you know, I'm sure the next couple of weeks will die down. And I love to always interact with as many people as possible. If they take the time out to talk to me, I'm going to talk to them and, you know, treat them like they're my best friend, and show them all love. So I'll take it in stride for the next few weeks and keep the high going. And I'm sure it's going to die down a little bit. The best thing about it right now is instead of me being on a diet, I can eat whatever I want, so it's a lot more enjoyable. You know, like I said, I'm just going to ride the wave.
Nice. So your sponsor, Jason Hansen, was there, and he mentioned, you know, that you were several pounds heavier on stage this year. Would you attribute that to more of the peaking protocol, or to just kind of maybe finally a few years off from not doing multiple shows a year and just really letting your body make some gains?
I definitely attribute it to probably neither of those, actually. I attribute it more to my training this year was a lot different. And I was really busy, and I probably would have done a similar prep that I've done in previous years, you know, to get ready for the show. But I had a friend of mine that contacted me and said, look, you know what, I know you're getting ready for the Natural Olympia. I want you to really come in full this year, and I think I know how to help you get that way because I helped my son get that way. And that guy is Davion Hill's father, Troy Hill. And so he talked to me. He told me some things that he saw, you know, with him being a judge before at the Natural Olympia and things like that. And gave me some really, really, really good advice. And I can say that advice that he gave me was just the stuff that I needed to really push myself. And even, you know, some of the things I did already on my own, but there are a couple of things that I never did that really helped. And having a coach, you know, per se, I've always done my own prep, but having someone that I was accountable for really helped me to push myself to where I need to be. You know, when I'm accountable for myself instead of not really pushing fully to 100%, I think that caused me to come in the way I've always been. You know, a lot of people you see on stage, you know, the other day, they don't change their look. They come with the same package over and over again. And I would have done the same thing if not for Troy. And I feel like him giving me that little extra pump helped me to come in bigger and better and be able to hang on stage with the bigger guys while still bringing in that solid condition.
Nice. Rico, you have everyone that will be listening on the edge of their seat. What are these changes and new methods?
I bet. And the training, yeah, it was outstanding. I just, like I said, it helped me fill in some of those holes and, you know, that in my physique that I needed to fill in to look more impressive on stage.
You're not getting away that easy. Tell us more details.
Yeah, You say it again?
I said, you're not getting away that easy. Tell us more details. What were the changes that you made?
Well, I'm not allowed to give all of his his secrets and details, but all I can say is I put more of an emphasis on, and my wife, God bless her, she had to deal with me spending that extra time in the gym than I normally do, because I try my best to kind of balance the home life and gym life and work life and everything. But this time, with the training protocol and having to be accountable to Troy, I worked my shoulders, twice a week, and I had a lot more volume and drop sets and things like that than I normally would do. Same thing with my back workouts. The training itself really focused on all my weak points, and doing that really allowed me to kind of bring those body parts up. And as far as food-wise, instead of cutting my carbs out, I kept them really high. And so, unlike before where I had cut carbs and maybe skimp out on the cardio, I kind of added more cardio and had more carbs in my diet. So the combination of those two things, plus really focusing on the weak points, really helped me out when it came to just developing my muscles more and getting, more thickness in those areas, and, eating a lot of food. That was the main thing. So that's pretty much all I can divulge.
Nice. Well, everyone will have to send you some personal messages and nag you. No, just kidding. So as for the actual training, though, I mean, me being a little bit familiar with a few things that you've experimented with and gone back and forth, it sounds like maybe to some degree, with obviously some tweaks, that maybe you kind of got back to a little more of a traditional bodybuilding style training, a little more so than kind of like a powerlifting hybrid. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a combo of both. There are some days where I did a little bit of, certain body parts I would do a powerlifting style, and then others, it was basically a traditional bodybuilding where, I stick to the 8 to 10, 12 reps, and then I would have drop sets in there as well, just to kind of stay as heavy as possible, but then then fully exhaust that muscle by dropping the weight down. And I really feel that the reason why I was able to make some gains in the areas that I needed to was just the volume. I never stayed in the gym so long because I just, like I said, I didn't put a priority on the gym time. I wanted to get in and get out, just do just enough to, get that pump and leave. But this time I had to follow the training program, and the program had me in the gym where I was getting so many sets and reps that, I was getting sore. I was really volumizing that area. I was hitting those areas of interest and of weakness twice, in that time frame. So, when you do that, you're going to grow, and if you combine that with proper nutrition and feeding the muscles, you're going to also grow. So that was the main difference, and it worked like a charm.
Right. Yeah, no, I was going to say, and even just in terms of scheduling that additional time, obviously being better fueled, obviously makes you, I guess, psychologically ready to tackle longer sessions as well.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. That psychological push, knowing that you have to schedule that time, get it in. And it took a lot of sacrifice for my wife. I had to give her really a lot of praise because, I'd get home later than I normally would. I'd have to do cardio twice a day. She'd have to cook my food for me. She had to take care of the kids. So it's not easy, and it can cause a lot of stress in the family. And that's the type of thing that I don't want to continue doing, that just to kind of focus on, selfishly on myself to win a title. It's a team effort. And so I have to give her props, obviously Troy props, obviously my sponsor, Jason Hansen, props. He helped me out with supplementation, things like that. Like if I need something, they would send it to me. So it's a team effort. I give this whole entire thing to all of them as well. And, if you're going to focus on being the best, it takes more than just doing it, halfway. You've got to go 120% in. If you're going to go up against guys like Martin Daniels and Mike Waddington, Justin Ricardo, Meshack, etc.
Right. So it's actually really interesting listening to Brian earlier in his interview. He had an injury to his knee, and so he said that he had to back off cardio a lot, wasn't able to do cardio the way he would normally like to, and focus more on dieting food-wise. And so in your case, it sounds like you fueled yourself up more so than normal so that you could handle more cardio and didn't have to pull as much food away. and it sounds like you've done both approaches over the years. Obviously, both can work. Obviously, you've won titles doing both. Obviously, each scenario is going to matter. If you had an injury, that might make things different. Every person's going to be different. But having experienced both ways of more cardio, more food, or less cardio, less food, like what are your thoughts on each approach?
I mean, like you said, you hit it right on the head. Both can work. I just personally feel that if you want to stay stronger in the gym and keep more volume in your muscles, I think that you have to continue to feed the muscles. Now, it really depends on your schedule and your family and everything else. Like, what can you handle? If you're injured, then you're going to have to do things like what Brian did. If you have a tough work schedule or things that just can't control, you're just going to have to do what you can to fit your schedule. And I know back in 2012, I was working a different type of job where I was doing shift work, and I was working days and nights and 12-hour shifts and things like that. So I didn't have time for the cardio, so I had to do exactly what Brian did. And I felt like I came in, pretty shredded, but I didn't have the fullness because, I just wasn't able to eat the food the way I needed to because it just kind of weighed me down and made me tired. I didn't have the time to do the cardio either to kind of make sure that I had that calorie deficit to burn the body fat. So, with that, I had to kind of restrict my calories a lot more, kind of like what Brian was doing. And like I said, I definitely came in shredded, but I think I lost a little bit when it came to the size. This time out, because I was able to do everything I had to when it came to food. I mean, my food bill was ridiculous, how much food I was eating. And I had to wake up extra early. I'd come home late at night because of the workout. So it took a lot of time. It was very grueling prep. I had to drink a lot more water. All those things combined, it kind of is hard on your body. But, like I said, it's worth it when you, the volume that you have in your muscles is great. I was strong in the gym the entire prep until maybe the last, 2 or 3 weeks. And that stuff all those things are very positive. So it's really about your schedule and your lifestyle, what you can handle.
Right. So you mentioned that coming into the end of the prep there that you were kind of cutting things down more. Did you have time to kind of like what people are calling now like reverse into the show or eat into the show, or no, you pretty much had to deplete right down to the last minute?
I ate into the show. The only time I restricted myself a little bit, because obviously, we had to fly it from the East Coast to Las Vegas. So, with that flight, it kind of affected me. And I even had something that was kind of scary that happened on the way because I was eating a lot of fish. So we were rushing to the airport, me and the family, and right before we got on our flight, because our flight had issues where they had me and the family sitting in different seats, and I got a young daughter. We don't want her sitting by herself, so we're trying to get that all squared away. My wife is fiercely trying to get that scheduled, and I wanted to heat up my fish, because that was my next meal for my prep, and didn't have the time, so I ate it cold. After we got to Vegas, I was walking around, and I got sick. Like, my stomach just knotted up, and I was just throwing it up nonstop, and I was like, oh, my goodness, what's wrong with me? And it's like the first time I had that happen in my prep, and, you could definitely tell it was the fish. So my wife thought she was going to take me to the hospital and this and that, but I was stubborn and said, no, let me just keep keeping it out. So that was scary. I thought it was going to affect me with my prep and everything. But besides that portion of it, I was pretty much eating, all the time. I was, still having higher carbs. I didn't deplete my sodium or anything. I was just, eating into the show. I just got to, when I got to Vegas, I just did some cardio again, even before the show. And, I cut my carbs a little bit, but nothing too major.
Right. So we're mentioning cardio a lot here. So would you say, I mean, you don't have to give us the exact protocol or numbers. It sounds like that's maybe something you don't want to share, but let's just say, for sake of example, let's say you were at like 500 carbs at the start of your prep. Were you pretty similar to that all the way at the end, and you'd simply just ramped your cardio up a ton, or was the food also coming down as well? Like, how much cardio were you doing?
Well, I have a really fast metabolism. So, for most people, it really depends on how you react to, the food and how your body reacts. So luckily for me, I reacted very positively to the food, to the cardio. So once I started doing a higher amount of cardio, I started really cutting down very quickly. So then we had to actually add food into my diet. And so, I was kind of scared of that because I thought, oh, I'm just going to lose my condition. But, it helped me. My body kind of became like a balloon. So when I ate, I filled out. I gained a little weight. When I, cut it down, I first immediately dropped. So we knew kind of how my body would work when it came to the food and to the cardio. And I would even cut my cardio down just so I can kind of maintain a certain body weight. And I just, week after week, continued to lose that body fat. And then the last week, I did cut the carbs down a little bit, and I kind of had a baseline of cardio, but nothing where I ramped up the cardio except for when I left. When you're flying, you can hold water because I didn't have the water to drink with me or anything like that. And so when I got there, I wanted to kind of lose some of the water, so I did a little bit more cardio to kind of get the water out of me, and then I just stuck to a baseline, up till Friday, and then, just kind of ate just normal, and then that was it.
Right, but at your peak of doing cardio, what are we talking? 3 days a week, 6 days a week, once a day, twice a day?
Oh, no, I was doing cardio almost every day.
Okay. And then more of a high-intensity approach or low-intensity or mix? Or?
Oh, it was all low. It was low-intensity stuff, no hit. It was just all low-intensity to preserve muscle.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting because you'll have the people, let's just be honest, right? That's a hotly debated topic. I know people that say, HIIT's the only way to go because, may as well stimulate your muscles in the same way that your weight training is and, keep things high intensity, very specific, type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers and stuff like that. Then you'll have other people say, oh, no, you can't do that because it'll take away from your training. You need to do low intensity. Just focus on that. It's in your fat burning zone, and round and round and round. And you hear people make cases for either way. I'll be honest with you. I guess I feel the science perhaps tips a little more towards high intensity, but I think it's always, kind of a loaded question because it's like, yeah, but did that study do it on someone that was actively dieting for a bodybuilding show, that was actively training like a bodybuilder, et cetera? Usually the answer would be no. What are your thoughts on that? Have you done other preps where you did high intensity interval training, or what made you so I guess conducive to wanting to do it this way?
Well, that's a really good question. I've done both. I've pretty much done every single type of prep that's out there for the most part. And one thing that everyone should realize, I'm 44 years old. And when you get older, if you think you can operate, at a high level where you're doing high intensity working, not getting a lot of sleep and this and that, I feel like you have to really listen to your body. If you don't want to go through, a long prep of, whether it's 16, 18, 20, 24 weeks, and you're killing yourself with high intensity and hardcore workouts, you're going to get injured. You're going to overtrain. So, if you're younger, if you're in your early 30s or, late 20s, whatever, yeah, if you do HIIT, I'm sure that it may be more effective, just, as science says. But if you're older and you're trying to do HIIT, and then, from the years of wear and tear that you put on your body, your knees, your lower back, I've got those same injuries. The whole entire prep, my right side of my lower back, I'm not sure what is your L5 or 4 or whatever, but, being in the Marine Corps, I have disability for that. I had to really be careful on how I trained. For some reason, my neck was stiff the entire prep, probably from just the constant training and everything else. So for me to do that lower intensity cardio helped me preserve muscle, helped me preserve my body from being injured. And that's the reason why I did that. When I was younger and I was playing football and doing other things and doing the Marine Corps stuff, I could do high intensity, and it was very effective as well. So you have to take it for what your body can handle. Your prep shouldn't be to the point where you're just destroying yourself so much that it's counterproductive to you getting those kind of results that you're looking for.
Right. Obviously, as you, again, I hate saying getting older because you looked, just as young as anyone else out there. But, what are your thoughts on, I guess, energy level in terms of just day to day? Obviously, I like say now at, is it 44 or 45?
Correct, 44. Yep.
Yeah. So 44.
I'd say back.
It's going to be different than say when you were like 30. But at the same point,
Gotcha.
Comparing like 44 with a lower intensity approach to maybe a few years ago with maybe a more of a higher intensity approach, like, do you feel like it has any effect on your just energy throughout the day with either cardio, or it really was hard to tie it to that specifically?
Right. Yeah, I definitely feel like age makes a big difference. I mean, But I also feel that maybe age isn't truly a factor because as I got older, I just have more going on in life. So I feel like if I didn't have so much going on and I was able to get that 7 or 8 hours sleep on top of the training, I probably would have very similar energy levels, maybe, a little bit more tired than I was in the 30s. But, in my 30s, I was able to do a whole lot more. I was, able to do that HIIT cardio. I can be in the gym for 2 hours. And, I can actually go out and party with my friends or whatever it is. But, I didn't have as many things going on. It was just my Marine Corps life, the gym, and that was pretty much it. Now, like I said, married, kids, family, I have a demanding job. And then on top of that, I got clients that I also help and prep for shows, and, they demand my time at times. But mainly, my kids, I got to make sure I give them their time because they're involved in sports. So trying to juggle that and kind of give my wife a break sometimes because she's always doing things with them. You throw all that in there, you're going to be tired. It takes a lot of energy and mental energy, physical energy. So when you're younger, you don't have less responsibility. You're going to have more energy. If you're older and have a lot more things going on in life, it's tougher. So, but my energy levels got a lot better as I lost weight. But there are definitely some times when I was just wore out because I had so much going on and training for longer periods of time compared to when I was younger.
Right. Yeah, I know myself, every once in a while I'll think back to the undergrad years, and I'm like where I slept, I don't know, 8.5 hours weekday nights and probably even 10 hours weekend nights. And I'm like, is it that, like you said, is it that I've gotten older, or is it simply just that if I still allowed myself that amount of sleep, I'd be in the same energy level, and it's simply just life doesn't allow for that anymore?
I think if you're older and you get that sleep, you will still feel at the same energy level because, if you're consistent with your training, you will train your body to adapt. And even at an older age, you'll have decent energy level, especially if you're good with your nutrition. I found myself, unfortunately, drinking a lot of caffeine, and, I've got, my sponsors have their pre-workout supplement boom, so I was doubling up on that. But, when I took that stuff, obviously I'm awake, but I wish I had pure natural energy where I wouldn't have to take those things. But obviously with the, getting only 6 hours sleep and then trying to do all those activities, I had to be, aware and be able to function at work and function with my family.
Gotcha. So for the listeners not aware, Rico's actually in the process of making his way home from work today, which makes me ask the question for people that would like to know with all the things you've just mentioned. I'm sure every day is different, but if you had to say what's sort of a typical day that people kind of wonder, what would it be like when you wake up, when you go to sleep, what happens in between?
So you talking about a typical day off season or pre-contest, in preparation for the show?
Could be either, honestly. Let's go with prep since that's relevant right now. I think people would be curious.
Yeah, the prep, especially this prep, I'd wake up at 5 in the morning. I'd do my low-intensity cardio, where there's, 30 minutes to kind of increase as the competition got, went along into midway. And then as soon as I started losing, body fat and kind of getting to a baseline, then a decrease. But anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, first thing, fasted cardio. Then I would immediately have breakfast, which would be my egg whites and oatmeal. I'd shower up, drive to work, and hour commute to Northern Virginia. I'd work from 7 o'clock until 7:30 until 4:30 or whatever. And during work, I'd bring my big old fridge with me, that we all bring, and I've got Tupperware bowls full of food, whether it's chicken breast brown rice, tilapia brown rice, and that was pretty much a staple of my diet, throughout the day, some boiled eggs or whatever. So then when I get off of work, I drive straight down to the gym, whether I go to the base gym at Quantico or my gym, Sports and Health, and then train there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, weight training, depending on what body parts. Like I said, I would do shoulders twice a week, so usually be in the beginning and the end of the week. And then I would do another, half-hour cardio. And right after I'm done with that, once again, I'd eat, usually it'd be tilapia and brown rice, and then get home with the family right afterwards. Usually it'd be late at night. Sometimes I'd have to go pick up my daughter from gymnastics, or I had to pick up my son from football. And that would be before my workout or after. It just really depended. Every day was different. And then once we got home, feed them, go over their homework. And luckily, like I said, a lot of times my wife would be the one that does that, but I'd try to spend as much time with them before they went to sleep. Then once I got home, I'd have my one more meal before bed, and I'd shower up and go to sleep. And that would be pretty much 5 days a week. And then on Saturday, I would do the same thing, obviously, without having to go to work. But I still train in the morning, get my workout and cardio again at night. And I just continue with my meals, throughout the day.
Gotcha. And prep clients in between and promote a show in between. No big deal.
Yeah, those are, and another thing that was even more stressful, I totally forgot to add in. I don't know if they mentioned it, but during the Natural Olympia, we were being filmed for a reality show, and I can't disclose the name or the network yet, but it's going to be coming out next April. So we were one of the families chosen. It's going to be about kids fitness, so it really followed my family, but they also followed me a little bit as well. So they were around during the summertime, and we were involved with them filming us, pretty much how our life goes, how we cook food, how we train our kids. So that was another thing that we were really heavily involved in. So it's another thing that we had to, prep for, throughout the whole time I was prepping for the show. And like I said, on top of that, with clients that are also competing, and I've been very blessed because all my clients had really successful years this year. So as a matter of fact, I got 3 clients that are competing this weekend at the NGA show here in Virginia, the Mount Rogers. I think you did that show last year. So, it's nonstop action, but, we make it work.
Nice. So with this documentary, obviously we'll see more when that comes out, but just a quick little question it raised for me is, so yeah, you do have kids, and how do you find a balance between, people want to say, let kids be kids, and, to some degree, obviously their, conditioning or whatever you want to call it on stage is not the same expectation as bodybuilders that are adults, and of course it shouldn't be. But how do you find a balance between obviously wanting to teach them, hey, these are healthy foods, you want to eat whole foods sometimes, and you can indulge once in a while, and you don't want them like regimenting everything in the kitchen, but maybe getting a little bit of cooking skills, and just how does that work?
Yeah, it's tough. I can definitely because I'm so focused as a bodybuilder that I try to do everything right. I'm old school. I want to eat clean, bro foods, the typical brown rice, oatmeal, chicken, fish, etc. And each of my kids are so different. I've got my son who, he dabbles in every single type of sport. He's done football, basketball, wrestling. Right now he's in wrestling again, and I think that's the sport that he seems to like the most. So he's been involved in so many different sports, and they want him to kind of do a little bit of a diet as well. And he is a bread eater. He loves bread. So you have to kind of like get him away from bread a little bit, because he doesn't get as lean naturally as my daughter does, because she does gymnastics, and she kind of has more of a body type that I have. So she can eat chocolate and candy and stuff like that and still have a six-pack and shoulders and stuff. So every child is different, and you have to kind of tailor your diet and your training and everything to that kid, as well as the fact that they have different motivation. So what it takes to motivate my son may be different as to what it takes to motivate my daughter. And so it's a tough balancing act. And then my youngest, she feels left out because she's not really into, the fitness part yet. And she's kind of a little angry child, even though she's so cute and everybody loves her to death. But we have to also keep her in check and keep her involved as well. And she likes to steal everybody's food. So there's a lot of moving parts. But we try to keep it so it's not so hardcore into what I do for bodybuilding. We make sure they have treats, and make sure they have fruit in their diet, that most of the time you won't see a bodybuilder have. You kind of avoid fruit and milk and bread and things like that, but we keep that for the most part in their diet. Try to just give them something that's tasty, but still healthy, and just try to up their activity level. And once again, my wife does an awesome job of doing that for them, because a lot of times I wasn't home to help out in that situation, but we do our best, and they end up looking really good for the show and did awesome. And my wife and I were very proud of them.
Nice. So you've been around the sport for a long time and have probably seen, how bodybuilding and obsession with fitness can, enhance lives or relationships in some rare cases, or even kind of destroy or, hamper relationships at times. You know, if you were giving advice to younger couples or, you know, new competitors that are young and, you know, they're kind of a just, you know, single dude or single girl and they're just totally focused on themselves and all that, like what kind of advice would you give to people like that, since you've probably perhaps maybe even been there yourself and now have had to kind of learn to balance things a little more?
Oh yeah, I've been on all of those sides. You know, it's both helped and hurt the relationship. And the one, there's a few, I guess, good tidbits. You know, and I still don't have it perfect. I still fail at times, and my wife would definitely let me know that. But I've done a much better job, you know, recently as you learn from experience. But the main thing I would say is that whether you're a guy or a girl that's competing, make sure that your other half is always with you at your shows. Like, have them fully involved, you know, because when you know, especially if you're first getting started or the person that you're with doesn't know anything about the sport, the first thing they think of is, you know, you're seeing half-naked people, you're hanging around half-naked people, and so they think it's, you know, I don't know, kind of it's some kind of adult film type meeting or something. So you have to get them involved so they realize that you're not going out there trying to, you know, hook up with anybody because they look a certain way, and to realize that, you know, when you're prepping, you're not always going to have a six-pack and be ripped and everything and look like a model. That's only a temporary thing that you do when you're prepping for a show. And if you let them go see the show and see that, you know, it's not all about, you know, your being in skimpy outfits, that, you know, there's a lot of times there's a lot of families there, you know, and there's a lot of people that are cheering on their other half, and it could be, you know, a really awesome thing to see versus it being, you know, like you said, some kind of strip show or something. And usually the more your other half sees how the show goes, even if you're not competing, and they get to see how the environment is and how the bodybuilding world really is and what people may think it is, then they'll get more comfortable with you competing, and kind of get them involved in your whole prep life and everything else. I think the more that they realize what you're going to, they'll respect it more and maybe even try it themselves.
Gotcha. And can you maybe even think of some times, not trying to like put you on blast or anything, but just, you know, where it has been a barrier or made challenges in your life and how you were able to kind of overcome it or balance it out to where you could keep moving forward with the family life and competing?
Yeah, I mean, even this time out, you know, just me prepping for so long and being gone to the gym, you know, for these long hours and this and that, you know, it can definitely come across as being selfish. And I felt that way at times, and sometimes, you know, my wife would let me know, my wife Mary would let me know, hey, this is how she feels. You just have to really be open and communicate, and obviously, you know, not to let emotions get the best of either one of you, so that someone has to have a cool head and just talk about it, and try to make the other person understand that, you know, as the competitor, you know, you're doing this for a certain goal, and as the one who's not competing but having to pick up the slack for the one that is competing, you know, you have to listen to them and let them vent their frustration, as, you know, for what they have to go through when it comes to, you know, them kind of feeling left out. You know, the person that's competing, you know, they're really concentrating on themselves, but they may forget that, hey, I've got a wife, I got kids, I got to focus on them and give them their time, maybe take them out on, you know, a date or something. And of course, when you're competing, the last thing you want to do is go out on a date and eat food that'll mess up your diet, or be in a situation where it's not optimal for competition or for dieting. But you got to get that time in there for them, for your other half, because they have to feel important. They have to feel that it's not all about just you. And unfortunately, bodybuilding can come across that way. So I've had that happen many times, and I've had to check myself and make sure that I do focus on my wife and let her know, hey, I really appreciate that you're doing all this for me and you're picking up the slack because I'm focusing on myself. But I love you. I appreciate what you're doing. And when this is all over, I promise I'll, you know, take care of you. You know, you got to just communicate and let them know that they're so important.
Right. Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing you said there is just like stopping yourself periodically to be like, you know, what can I do more? What can I do to help say something, do something, etc., and not let yourself go extended periods of time without communicating about those things and stuff.
Very true.
Good advice. So let's get towards a wrap up here, and just kind of a couple last questions I had about the stage. And obviously you're talking about all the training, all the cardio, but obviously anyone that's been to a show you're at knows that you throw down with a pretty ridiculous posing routine. And so, you know, the crowd really likes that. It's obvious that, you know, you enjoy performing for them, etc. With so many competitors these days kind of saying like, the posing routines aren't really scored. It's not that big of a deal. Just kind of go out there and, you know, go through the motions. And I hate saying it, I'll be honest with you, that was somewhat of my approach. I mean, I put some time into practicing it, but not a ton. You know, what's your motivating factor there? Is it just your true love of putting on a show? Is it for the fans? Is it because you are concerned that, hey, you might need it as a slight edge if it's a really close call? Or
I think it's a combination of both. You know, the one thing when I was younger, when I actually attended a show, when I first started, obviously no one's a good poser when you first start out, you know, unless you've really studied the sport and, like, you know, are a fan of the old school guys who can pose. I didn't do that when I was, you know, in the beginning, but then when I started looking at shows can be really boring as you're seeing the same people doing, you know, unchoreographed posing routines, or maybe using the same music as someone else, and it's like you're hearing the same repetitive thing over and over and over again, and you're there for hours looking at that. So I try to put myself in the audience's shoes when I'm competing, so that they, you know, you want to see something that's different. You want to see something that kind of grabs you. And so when I did that, I hear the same thing. I heard it from my wife. I heard it from some of my friends that would go see the shows that say, you know, it's kind of boring. I like to see, you know, somebody should do something more theatrical. And so when I finally got a chance to guest pose, and I did something, you know, and I used those, you know, some of the guest posing routines from my very first one, just the reaction I got from the crowd is enough for you to put that extra time in there. You know, you want to get a positive reaction. If you take pride in the sport and you have passion for it, you want to get positive feedback than just to be, you know, another face in the crowd or another face on the stage. So posing to me is a way for you to interact with the crowd and kind of let them know that you appreciate them being out there supporting you, and that you took the time to be professional enough to come up with a good posing routine. And obviously, when you do have a good posing routine, you know, even if whether you're a champion or not, a lot of times you're going to have people that want you to guest pose for them, or at least look forward to seeing your performance. And I think that right there is a good driving force for me, to make sure that I choreograph my routines and take time to practice, come up with something original, because now you want to kind of uphold a standard that, you know, people that watch you or follow you put you at. And I also feel like when you're on stage, you know, I used to get scared because I'm not the biggest guy, you know, and when I look at everybody else, I have that illusion or something in my head that says, man, that guy's so big, you got bigger this, bigger that. But then when I look at pictures and I see them posing, they don't pull out those big muscles that they have just standing there normally. And I feel like sometimes I'm able to pull out muscles that I normally wouldn't appear to have, because I practice my posing and try to find the best way to show off, you know, each body part to the best of its ability. And that's why posing is so important, because you can be the biggest guy, but if you don't know how to show those muscles, you're definitely going to lose points when it comes to the judges. So usually the standing or relax, I might not be the best guy, but, you know, when it comes to the front lat spread, side chest, and et cetera, if I'm able to show off my muscles in the best way possible, then the judge is going to see that, and that's going to gain me points and put me ahead of my competitors.
Right. So how long does it take you, like the routine you just did at the Natural Olympia, for how many weeks or months did you practice that, and how often and how much time? If that was me, that would have been like 6 months of like 2 hours a day or something.
Yeah. Well, the main thing for me is that, you know, it's tough because there's so many popular songs out there. So the one thing you have to do, you have to take time to find a good song, you know, and the one that kind of fits your body, that you can kind of find a way to choreograph with, you know, maybe the best poses you have for your body. So I had to find the music first and find a way to kind of, you know, cut different things and, blend in two different songs into one. And when I got that, I just had to basically look and see how to flow in between each one of the high and low points of the song. And I'm a fan of bodybuilding. I like, you know, famous bodybuilders from back in the day, like the Lee Labradas and Sean Rays. And then even guys now, like I love Mojo Lua, how he poses. So sometimes I look at them for kind of like motivation, and see how they flow into position. And I don't really copy their poses, but some of the ways that I see them moving, I'm like, oh, I like that. Maybe I can kind of throw something like that, but put this pose into it. And so, yeah, that takes time. And I would do my cardio in the morning and look at different posing routines and try to figure out a way to, incorporate some of that style into my routine. So it did take it took a while. It did take a couple of months before, I would perfect it. But I think the more you do it, over and over again, then it becomes second nature to you. I can't just go out there and wing a routine, and really feel proud of it and happy with it. So before my cardio, I'd even pose and practice my routine, then do the cardio, then eat. So that's another part of my day and part of my training. So it would probably take a good 2 months of me, getting my routine down, the music and everything else to perfect it.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think a advantage that's often neglected that you just mentioned about low intensity cardio is the ability to kind of multitask during it. So you're just trying to catch your breath and survive, but low intensity,
yeah, exactly.
you could be watching
sure.
you could be watching some routines or kind of going through your poses in your head or that kind of stuff. So that's true. So last two questions. One is a little bit of a weird one, but I'll be honest with you, it gets asked to me reasonably often, where they're like, how does he get veins like that in his legs? How do you think his legs look like that? Where do those veins come from? What do I do to look like that? Do you think that it's just genetics? Have you always been that way? Is there anything you can attribute to that? Or
I think it's a combination of genetics and just the prep. I don't go too far off season trying to get, gaining weight, excess weight. Because to be honest, like in the beginning of my career, obviously I didn't have veins and striated glutes and all that earlier on. It took time to kind of perfect my training and the diet to get it to the point where, the body fat levels got so low that I'm able to see those things. And that's kind of when I know that I'm ready. And when you hit a certain level of conditioning, then that's your benchmark. So for me, when I first started out, obviously, and you're in the off-season phase, I'm not seeing those things. I'm not seeing a vein down my leg in the off-season. Maybe after the first 4 weeks of preps, I can start seeing, a little bit of visibility here and there. But for it to get to that kind of level of vascularity, it's just weeks and weeks of grinding away and just drying your body out to get the vascularity. I feel like, drinking lots of water during prep, the combination of cardio and also just the clean eating food, I know there's the efficient macros and everything else, but I just truly believe, whatever you put in your body is going to affect the way it looks. I love the clean eating. I attribute it to this. When you eat like, spaghetti sauce or something, and you have it in the pan, you look at the residue that's left over from that spaghetti sauce or from something that's got these extra ingredients or sauces or whatever, that ingredients, imagine that being in your body. I know when I eat something lean, like, lean 99% fat-free chicken breast or, vegetables or fish, there is no residue, and that's what your body is processing in your body so that whatever comes out, you're going to be just as dry as that food you're eating. And so getting that dry, lean conditioning is going to make those veins pop out. It's going to make, the glutes come in. It's going to make your hamstrings pop and everything else, striations in your chest. And, that's just been the mainstay of my competition prep since, back in 2003.
Gotcha. So that final question I guess I had, and I'd ask Brian the same thing. Obviously, you just kind of mentioned there, your belief in eating clean, if you will. I think every competitor that's been around as long as you have has kind of those, like, I don't know what you say, rules, but just, principles that they swear by regardless of what everyone else says, whether it be the exercise selection, the, intensity of cardio, the length of their prep, etc. So obviously the eating you just described there, would you say there's anything else that you think, despite all the methods you've tried, you just have always stayed true to and it has been a key to your success?
I mean, basically just that, the cleaning. I think earlier on in my career too, maybe not so much this time out, but maybe so too, because, I do eat clean, and I'm not going to say that I've been perfect when I eat clean, that I'd never cheat or never have, something that's not a bro food or whatever. There are times, especially, I give myself that time. I like what Brian does too. I know that he's notorious for, doing those long preps, the 24, sometimes even 30-week preps, to really nail that conditioning. And I study him because I think, when I look at him, he's like obviously one of the best in the world. If you win, both the WNBF and New York in the same year, that's a record-setting season for him. And he's always been a physique I admire, and his conditioning is, probably the best in the history of the sport. So, having that long prep, and I do the same thing, allows you to have that wiggle room and flexibility to throw in, a cheat meal or even a cheat day, and it all depends on your metabolism. But obviously I'm feeling like guys like myself and Brian have that fast metabolism, almost an ectomorph type of metabolism. So, I can go to a birthday party where my kids are having cake and ice cream and burgers and hot dogs and stuff, and I can enjoy myself at that party and eat. And then the rest of the week, I would just, get right back on my diet and, continue week after week to get leaner and leaner. So I do feel if you do a clean diet, if you want to have that one day of, it's fitting your macros, that's perfectly fine. And then as you get closer to the show, you cut that stuff out. So I've always been a proponent of having, a cheat day, or you can even just do a refeed. It's really up to you. Me, because I have kids, I do normally just do a cheat day so I can actually enjoy that weekend with my wife and my kids, because I don't want to be the odd person out, bringing a Tupperware bowl full of chicken and stuff like that, when I can, take them to, get some pizza or something, or eat some normal food. I think that when I do that, it also resets my metabolism to the point where I can see myself and feel myself sweating, burning that nasty food off. And then the next day when I get back to, the clean, normal diet, then I actually sometimes even lose weight. So, but that's probably the only other thing that I would say that I do as part of my prep that's maybe different than others, or maybe not.
Gotcha. So Rico, explain for the listeners how I ate 4 large thin crust pizzas at your house and dropped weight the day after.
Oh man, my wife, I think, is traumatized from seeing you eat so much food. She talks about it all the time. Between that and how much spinach you ate with all that garlic in it, that had our house smell like garlic for for about a week. You can put away some food, bro. That was amazing for sure. And like I said, you are forever imprinted in my wife's brain. You just killing that pizza. So you have a fast metabolism too. That's for sure. For sure.
Nice. Is there anything else you want to say to your fans, your supporters, or anything before we go?
Like I said, I just want to thank my wife for just, like I said, she's awesome. She puts up with me. She's my biggest fan, even though sometimes we clash on certain things. This is what happens in relationships. But I know that she always has my best interests in heart. She's always got my back, and I love her to death. And not to mention she's gorgeous. So big thanks to her. I want to give a big thanks to Jason Hansen, who's my sponsor, and you mentioned him. He came out this weekend. If it wasn't for him, he would help relieve so much stress with everything going on at the show, to really help me to get on stage stress-free, ready to do battle with those, unbelievable top pros that I faced. And so big props to him, as well as David Edgell, Ray Ross. They all were part of the Body Evolution team coming out of Utah. Once again, Troy Hill for his, just taking the time to really help me. He asked me, or he told me he wanted to help me, and it was unbelievable. He just saw something in me that he knew I could change to make me more competitive, and it worked like a charm. So just big props and praise to him. Obviously praise to God, because I just am so blessed that he's just given me something like this, a gift of just being successful, in the sport. I never would have thought in a million years that I can be at this level, and it's kind of like unreal to me, but I just take it in stride. But he keeps me humble, and keeps me from, doing things that I shouldn't be doing. And, he just gives me something that I can call my own, and I just want to praise him for that. And also, the Keiko family, the PNBA, for holding such an awesome Natural Olympia. It was a great show, great venue, all the athletes from all over the world. It was just a fabulous experience. And, to get the Hall of Fame induction as well after that was, even a bigger bonus. So, like I said, life is so unreal right now. I don't feel worthy, and I'm just happy to have that opportunity. And I also want to give props to just any natural bodybuilder out there. like I said, I'm a big fan of Brian Whitaker, and I'm so happy that he was able to take home both, titles this year, the big world championships. And if I was going to vote for, Natural Bodybuilder of the Year, he definitely should get that top honor, because no one's done what he's done this year. And so, there's a lot of other bodybuilders that had great years. I know Cleveland had a great year, Meshack and everybody else. But to me, he was the one that I point to as having the year of being the top guy. So praise and props to him. Thank you as well for, interviewing both of us. And of course, Inside Natural Bodybuilding, the whole entire team. I just want to thank everybody. This is a very niche sport, that's out there, small, but we have a big family that all sticks together. And like you mentioned in the beginning, it'd be nice to get paid, $50,000 or $100,000 a year to compete and win a big show, but that's not the case. But I think maybe we have something that's even better, and that's camaraderie within the sport, knowing that we're doing it the right way, the natural way. And I think there's a lot of us. When you get older, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you're still able to compete and be healthy. I think that's worth more than money, can never buy. So that's about it.
Awesome stuff, Rico. Couldn't have ended it better myself. sounded great. Said all the right things, and really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I'm sure people will enjoy this interview, and pleasure talking to you as always.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay. Currently, Barbell One is having its only sale of the year. Free shipping and 25% off all items through the end of November 30th, 2015.
Go to barbell1.com now.